Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Middle of February. We are just cruising through the month. Unbelievable how fast the year's going. It always seems to, kind of sneak up on us, and then it just starts moving, and time goes fast. So hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody is settling into the year. Hopefully your sales kickoffs and your budgets have been set for the year. Your goals have been set, and you're just getting into the year. So was thinking about, was looking at some earnings numbers and was looking at, the typical article that's being written from time to time, whether it's in Gartner or the Register or something about VMware migrations and how long that might take and whether or not people are doing that or not. And it got me thinking, a little bit kind of side channel, I guess. It got me thinking, it was a weird time. I guess VMware Broadcom had nothing to do with this, but it's kind of a weird time for the increase in prices to happen because they happened right around the time when so many, mid-sized and large-sized companies were beginning to explore AI. We're starting to go down their AI journey. And so it got me thinking, just as we're thinking about 2025 and even into 2026, how will AI impact your IT budget? And I thought it'd be sort of interesting just to explore some areas. I know I've touched on this somewhat. I did a show about, what would be like to be an AI first CIO, in the same vein of being a sort of a cloud first CIO. And I'll kind of explore some of the things that we talked about there as well. But I got to thinking about, if you were doing AI and what doing AI in 2025 means could mean a lot of things for a lot of different companies. But I got to thinking, what are the main things that you might want to be thinking about in terms of not just success for it, not just, how would you do it? What areas are you looking at? What are your use cases? All those sort of things. But really, how is this going to potentially impact your budget for 2025? Just given that, there's lots of uncertainty from an economic perspective. We're never quite sure with the new administration what might happen, what might come out of tariffs, what might come out of inflation or interest rates or those types of things. So those are sort of unknowns. You can make a prediction for them, but they're sort of unknowns. And then obviously, for a lot of companies, they're figuring out what they're doing from a VMware perspective. So you've got a couple of things that have, sort of nothing to do with AI potentially impacting your IT budget. You've probably got your normal 60, 70, 80% budget that pretty much stays the same year in and year out is running your day-to-day operations, running the things that keep the lights on, make money for your business. And then you're trying to figure out, what do we do from an AI perspective? Because it's in many cases, it's going to be incremental budget, incremental cost to the system. And then trying to figure out, what does the ROI of that look like? So I made a list of some things that would be sort of top of mind if I was going through, thinking about how will AI impact my budget. And again, these are, never necessarily like in priority order, but they're, lists of, things that I think are important to kind of keep an eye on. So the first question I would sort of be asking, and this, has to do somewhat with budget, has to do somewhat with scope of work and so forth, is the focus of your project, is the focus of the AI things that you're working on going to be about human augmentation? So you're going to be trying to improve the capabilities of the people that you have working, the tools that you have in place, or are you primarily looking to do sort of like human replacement capabilities, right? So an example of this might very well be something like, am I looking to improve capabilities for my sales team or my marketing team or my finance team, trying to give them, take them from 100% of what they do to 150% of what they do type of thing? Or am I looking to, potentially replace a number of like call center agents, for example, by using, chatbots to cover 60, 70, 80% of the call volume or something like that, right? So just kind of common examples. But I think that's a valuable thing to take a look at because that's going to, if you're looking to do sort of human augmentation, you're probably looking at something that, initially looks like an increase in cost because you're going to have to build out the system, plus you're leaving the people in place. And then you've got sort of the unknown of, how much augmentation will this do, right? And what are your goals and what does success look like? Versus if you're looking to do human replacement, some of those types of things, again, low hanging fruit kind of, call center things or whatever those might be. Those have some, decent metrics in place. You can kind of know what you're getting, what you're buying. And, maybe you're saying, look, I need to replace half the number of people I have, and I'm going to do that, with the system, and I know what half my people cost would look like, and the system looks like, and so you can do some math, sort of plus and minus in terms of the budget there. But I think that's an important thing to sort of have in mind is where are you going after that focus, and given which one of those things you'll be going after, are there known knowns or are there a bunch of sort of unknowns that you're going to be dealing with? The second thing that was on my list is if you're buying AI as part of SaaS services, so whether that is a co-pilot, whether that's a plug-in to some set of applications you have, whatever those things might be, is the pricing going to be seat-based, right? So, i.e., you're doing sort of human augmentation. You're going to continue to have a number of people, but you're going to need augmentation of what they do, or is it going to be usage-based, so more human replacement? And we're seeing some interesting things sort of happen out in the marketplace, whether it's a combination of those things or whether we're starting to see, as we've talked about in a few shows, you're starting to see like bundles of services get discussed and get priced. And in some cases, like Microsoft Office is starting to talk about this. Google kind of Office Suite is starting to talk about this, where they're saying, well, the AI will be included for free or bundled in, no specific additional charge for that. But the price of the overall service, so like a Office 365 type thing, that price is going up. So in essence, they're sort of playing some games in terms of they know that the cost is going to be more expensive to deliver via AI because you're talking about GPUs and models and inference and all that sort of stuff. But they don't necessarily want to make the price increase be based on AI because they know a lot of people will go, well, because that's still such an unknown, and I don't know exactly how much I'm willing to pay for that. I don't know that I want to accept a price increase. But if they just sort of go, well, the value of the service is the value of the service, we're increasing on that, then you're in a little more of a dicey situation because in many cases, you're probably very dependent upon that service. So just kind of be on the lookout for that type of thing. Next thing I have on my list is, are you primarily working on predictive AI products, predictive AI types of capabilities and services, which in many cases for many businesses is going to be, an expansion of something you're already doing within like your data science team, your ML ops team. And so the focus there might be an expansion of what they're focused on, right? Like you might be beginning to really understand that technology space, and you're looking to expand upon that. So it could be predictive AI, it could be natural language processing, could be computer vision, could be a whole slew of things that fit into sort of predictive AI. In that case, maybe what you're looking at is, are there ways to get our models and our applications into production faster, right? So you might be making an investment in that space in order to be able to accelerate your time to market, but you probably have an understanding of like with a faster time to market, that's going to have a bigger impact on the business, and that may have either cost reduction ramifications, or it might have profitability and increased revenue ramifications. So that may be something you're looking to explore. We see a number of people, companies and projects in the sort of ML ops space, which is probably the area that you're looking at. Or are you looking to do more GenAI related projects? And this is where, things that we've discussed really kind of come into play, right? Like, what are you trying to do? How much are you trying to customize versus just use what's kind of off the shelf? Are you using things that are going to be cloud-based? Are you building things that are going to be internally used, maybe in your private cloud? Those are two kind of very different things, and the pace of change and the sort of skill set and the where it could be used are going to be very different. So those are kind of important to look at. Are you looking at predictive AI types of things versus Gen AI types of things? And then you can kind of dive in and peel back the onion beyond that. Next question to sort of be figuring out is, are you buying, if you're, deploying and you're not using sort of SaaS services, you're doing something that looks more sort of PaaS-like or infrastructure as service-like in terms of, how you're interacting with the AI. If you're buying GPUs, if you're sort of buying developer services to help you accelerate pipelines and so on and so forth. Are you buying resources from the cloud providers? Are you buying from AI-specific hosting providers, CoreWeave and Rackspace and lots of others like that? Or are you buying GPUs for private cloud usage? And these will all have kind of very different buying models, whether you're buying a 1-year lease, if you will, a 3-year lease, if you're able to buy in shorter cycles, if you're really trying to do a lot of experimentation, or if you are, buying GPUs for yourself, again, those could be things that you run in your private cloud. These could be things that you're leasing from sort of hosting. So it'll be important to sort of the same way that you dig into CPU-based pricing, whether it's reserved instances or spot pricing or longer-term contracts and so forth, to really kind of understand that market. And that market has different characteristics of it. Again, if you're buying GPUs, looking at, do you have to buy the latest and greatest? Are you able to buy some sort of secondary market stuff, as we've begun to see, even with things like DeepSeek? You don't necessarily always have to be buying the latest and greatest from NVIDIA and so forth, especially if you're not doing, building frontier models, right? Are you able to buy secondary market, third-dairy market, tertiary market, and so on and so forth for the types of things that you're doing? And again, it all depends on, are you trying to run this in production? Are you doing training? Are you experimenting, and so on and so forth? So it's important to sort of understand where you can go about doing that. That'll have ramifications in terms of where your data resides, but also you want to be thinking about, like, what are my contract options? Am I able to do shorter term options? Do I want to own the resources? Do I want to rent for a year? Am I ready to commit to 3 years? All those sorts of things kind of come into play. Next thing I have on my list that'll have an impact on budget is, are you planning to sort of use standard AI tools? Meaning, for example, we're going to give everybody a co-pilot type of account, a developer assistant type of account. We're going to give everybody some amount of access to a, ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, chatbot type of tool for research or for whatever it might be. And are you going to kind of use the standard service, or are you going to look to, do additional training of those models, alignment of those models, and what's the mechanism for going about doing that, right? Are you just, hoping to use kind of the private capabilities of those native services? Are you looking to own your model much more, own your AI experience? Those things will have very different cost implications, both in terms of the cost to do it, the tools that you want to use to do that, but also, do you have the skills in-house to do that? And then obviously, depending on how important it is to, sort of customize your model, hopefully the ROI for doing that, right? You're going to have a very business specific type of task for doing that versus just, giving your teams access to research or, building, marketing content, whatever those things might be. So those are important to look at. And the last couple are really, you may think of these as like budget things that the CFO types of care about, or are they more, kind of governance things that you want to put in place, but lessons learned from having done things in the cloud for a while. So first thing I had on my list was, do you have cost control capabilities for AI projects in place yet, right? And what I mean by that is, as you're asking your teams to go off and do things, depending on how centralized that guidance is or how distributed you're allowing your teams to go off and experiment with things, do you have kind of cost visibility, at least, maybe not cost control, but cost visibility in place? And I only say that because there are plenty of examples floating around. You can find plenty of examples on the internet. I'll maybe probably put a few in the show notes. People who, gone off, experimented with some things, tried different stuff, and depending on what they tried to do and their understanding of, how many tokens they were allowed to use, how many requests they were allowed to make, all those types of things, may come back with a bill that's $5,000 for the weekend, $50,000 for the weekend, $125,000 for the weekend of work, depending on, what you were asking GPUs to do, how well, you had controlled the context of what you're trying to do. And so I think, having that visibility is really important. And again, how you want to position it, whether it's like, we're going to be very stringent upon looking at what you do, or we just want to have visibility of what's going on so that we can learn from the process and so forth. A lot of people that did cloud didn't really learn that lesson early on. And as they got more into doing things in production and so on and so forth, it became problematic for them, to say the least. The next thing is, what are your success criteria for POCs, for experiments, for trials? And what I mean by that is, as you're beginning to do things, what is valuable, right? As we go back to the basic thing of like, are we trying to do human augmentation versus human replacement? Are we trying to just build a better service for our customers? What is our acceptable rate of error that comes from the model? How long are we willing to spend resources trying to fine tune the model, prompt engineer the model, have it interact with like RAG and other types of services, all those types of things. I think it's really important to understand like what do you think your success criteria needs to be, and you may not know the answer to that up front, and that might be perfectly fine. But at some point in time, understanding what that success criteria is, and then maybe the time frame that you're willing to put around that. Again, that success criteria could be based on correctness. It could be based on time and response time. It could be overall cost of a trial. It could be based on a whole lot of different things. But I think having some of those in place, whether they're immediately in place or you begin to put those more in place as you move from sort of initial concept to POCs to experiments and trials and things that might get into production, it's worth having a really good understanding of what that looks like, because you could have just like any IT project, you could have some pretty runaway costs for things if you aren't really paying attention to them and you're doing things in a very distributed manner, in terms of not only just costs that you don't expect, but sort of learning curves that you're not sharing across your teams and so forth. And then the last thing that I had on my list was, as you're looking at your projects, as you're looking at the staffing that you have in place, whether that's an in-house data science team, machine learning and ops team, or you just have people that are, eager to begin playing around with AI for whatever their work and their task is, are you able to use and upskill existing staff, or are you going to be having to need to hire AI-specific staff, AI-specific skill sets and so forth? Or potentially from a I don't have the skill set in-house today, are you looking at using external consulting, right? And we've seen, there are different opinions obviously about consulting, and it obviously depends on a project by project basis. If AI turns out to be anything like cloud, we did see, a number of very successful early adopters of cloud, were willing to sort of say, hey, we don't know what we don't know, and we'd like to bring in some people. And again, how formalized that consulting might be, or external experts. We did see a lot of early success from people that said, hey, we need some help with this stuff, people that can help accelerate our learning curve. So again, understanding how much do you have in-house, how much are people going to be doing sort of resume-driven development versus, kind of meeting the criteria you had for success and so forth. I think having that sort of, Venn diagram of cost visibility, success criteria put in place, understanding the skill sets you have, and then really kind of understand, where are we looking to find wins, right? Like what's our time frame for trying to find wins versus, how much time we're willing to sort of experiment with stuff and learn those things. I think, having that Venn diagram and then sort of figuring out the right balance between those 3 or 4 critical elements are going to have a big impact on, whether or not the monies that you spend, the incremental monies that you spend on AI in 2025, 2026, turn out to be successful, or at least they are successful in the context of we know a lot more, we're a lot smarter than we were when we first started this stuff. Because again, a lot of this is going to be, people are going to go in with big expectations. You may have, huge sort of top-down mandates from leadership teams, C-level suites and so forth. But really kind of understanding like, how are we going to get there, and how do we know what success looks like if we don't really know going in what that might look like? So anyways, I think all those things are very important. I think, getting back to, some of the things that we did in early cloud days, in which, you're spending times in meetups, you're trying to meet with your peers, you're trying to understand from as many resources as you possibly can. What does success look like? What do failures look like? What does a learning curve look like? What should you know? Where should you be spending your time and effort? I think those are all very, very valuable activities to be engaged with, especially at this point in, the enterprise IT sort of learning curve, right? So anyways, with that, I'm going to kind of wrap it up. A bunch of things to think about. I didn't want to necessarily just jump in and say, hey, you should expect a 30% increase or something like that, because everybody's project load, everybody's priorities for the year, everybody's budgets are going to be very different. So I thought it'd be a little more valuable to kind of lay out some things to be very conscious of, just from some of the early learnings we've seen from people, and some of the learnings obviously we took from success and lack of success around cloud as well. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the things the people who are going to do with AI are going to be perceived as new, but it still is, at the end of the day, you're still building software, you're still operating software, you're still, figuring out, what you're, kind of how that interacts with the cloud, how you get it distributed out to customers, how you manage it and operate it day to day, and all those things you need to be doing at a pretty good pace, in a highly automated way, and all those other things that you needed to do to be successful with cloud. So anyways, with that, sort of short and sweet this weekend, I'm doing some traveling, so didn't have a lot of time to dig into this a ton. But anyways, would love to hear people's feedback on, how you're thinking about your budgets, successes, some areas wherever you struggled more than you expected to that other people could learn from. All that would be valuable. Shoot us a note. All of our social media channels are listed at the bottom of the show notes. show@thecloudcast.net is our email if you ever want to send us an email there. But thank you all for listening. Thanks for telling a friend. Feedback so far this year has been really, really good. We're excited about a lot of the guests that we have upcoming. I know I'm going to be traveling a little bit. Aaron's going to be running a few of the shows for the next couple of weeks. But thank you all for listening. Thanks for telling a friend, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.